Okay. Good morning. It's Friday, December 2nd at 9 a.m. This is the Affordable Housing Growth and Development Trust Fund Board meeting. Please note that in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, the chair must inquire whether anyone is taping this meeting and to please make their presence known. Okay, seeing none. I will call the meeting to order. Wendy Northcross,
Here.
Laura Schufeld,
Here.
Mark Milne,
Here.
Andy Clyburn,
Here.
Mark Els. Okay. Is there any public comment today for this meeting? Oh.
I do note that on the screen, it looks like we do have our applicant is
Great, okay.
my phone, it looks like.
All right, so we'll assume that discussion will come up during the topic discussion. All right, great. Let's move into the topics then. Topic number 1, approval of the minutes from October 14th, 2022. Is there any discussion?
I move to accept.
I'll second.
All right, thank you both. Any discussion? Seeing none. Wendy Northcross,
Yes.
Laura Schufeld,
Yes.
Mark Milne,
Yes.
Andy Clyburn,
Yes.
Mark Els, yes. Thank you. Topic number 2, Trust Administrators Update. Jillian.
Okay, so I did want to report that we still are not receiving any responses to the NOFA advertising. So Amy and I have been working together trying to come up with concepts and ideas. And one of the things that we did talk about the targeting of the construction industry. It just really does not seem to be responding. Basically, the feedback is that this is simplified, but too many hoops, too little benefit. So the contractors are not biting on that. So it's in order to get the money out and to inspire people to respond with ideas. One of the thoughts that we came up with would be targeting service providers, homeless prevention service providers, or sheltering entities, some of the more human service type entities that could help with a different aspect of the problem. And it's kind of a bigger issue for you guys to think about as to whether that's a direction you want to go. But I think that we could move in that way. And we had worked on, I've reached, Charlie and I guess we'll be talking a little further about what the legal parameters of that would be, you know, how we frame a NOFA that has more to do with service provision as opposed to construction. And I'll listen for your feedback on that to start with, if that.
Okay. Board, any discussion?
I do.
Can I ask
Please.
a quick question?
Oh, sure, Wendy, ask your question.
Well,
At the
because
expense of Laura.
it's expensive Laura, who knows a lot more than me, and I want to hear what she has to say. But so would sheltering be, and maybe Laura can even answer this, would sheltering be more of a short-term solution rather than a longer-term housing solution? That's my 2 cents, and I'll let Laura expand.
And I'll just comment on that one. Yes, sheltering and any of these service things, these are more like interim solutions, because they are not intended to be permanent solutions. I don't believe.
Laura?
So because our funds are mainly CPA funds, CPA cannot fund service providers. It doesn't meet any of the, as we say, the verbs. It doesn't create affordable housing. It doesn't preserve, it doesn't acquire, and it's not eligible for support. There's actually a town in Massachusetts who's trying to get a home rule petition to allow them to use it for service providers, but the CPA coalition is opposing it. So it's not an eligible use.
All right, I don't know that well, I'm sorry, any further discussion, Mark or Andy? Okay, seeing none. Yeah, I don't see us moving into that service area as a board with the funds that are available. So I would not pursue that.
Okay.
Okay, keep continuing, Jillian.
Okay. Let's see, what else can I refresh you on? Yeah, the housing coordinators report, Ryan did note that she's not going to be here, so I'll cover that when that comes up on the agenda. And I think that, I'll leave it in that unless there was anything anybody wanted to ask.
Only of Elizabeth Jenkins. Elizabeth, where you're coordinating the housing production plan or in lieu of Ryan, whoever is, should Jillian or should you give that?
I'm prepared to give the housing coordinators report, but I'll certainly let Jillian add anything that I've missed.
Great. Okay, so back to Jillian. Keep going.
Also the report to the Community Preservation Committee. I was going through that. The one thing that I was trying to complete was to get the response back from the CBOC, the Cape and Islands Veterans Outreach, and they have not been terribly responsive. So I guess I'm just going to wrap up the final report, or the quarterly. It's a semi-annual report. Just to note that we're continuing to work with them. I had hoped to be able to say that we had a date when they would be completing, and but I don't have that yet. So that's the latest on the project. 850 Falmouth Road. We are moving along. We have the monitoring and service agreement completed, and we're finalizing hopefully the lease format. And then I think things are progressing there. Tim Tellman tells me that progress on the construction is all proceeding, and that as soon as they have the leasing components, they will be able to proceed, I think, to the certificates of occupancy. Any questions on any of that?
I have
Laura?
a question. Jillian, who's the lottery agent?
It is Strategic Consulting. They're Paula Stewart, I believe is her name, and she's in Westfield, I believe.
And when are they gonna, I haven't seen any advertisements. Has there been any?
No, I have not seen any ads yet, and I have asked him if he would share that with me when he's got that, but I have not seen that yet. And I think they were waiting on that lease component. He has forwarded to her the contract, and I know she's ready to go, but she hasn't started yet.
Okay, because it does need to be 60 days of advertising before they can hold the lottery, and then 30 days before lease up. So it's a 90-day process at the least.
I'll remind him of that. Thank you.
Yes, Charlie.
Thank you. Just observation. I have the lease draft. Preliminarily, it looks good. I'm hoping to get it out actually this afternoon, certainly Monday at the latest. But I'm wondering, Laura, I don't know whether I might be able to run it by you for a quick. Great, that'll be great.
Today.
Yeah.
I'll be gone. No, only
Sure.
because I'll be gone for the next.
Super. All right, thank you. I'd appreciate your thoughts.
That's about all I have.
All right. Thank you, Jillian. All right, next on topics for discussion, application presentation from Mass Military Support Foundation. So, Mr. Cox, are you out there?
Yes, I am, Mr. Ells. Good morning, and thank you for having us. We've been working on this. It seems like a baseball season. We started back in February with Ruth before she left, and we've worked with Jillian diligently over the past 6 or 7 months. I believe my associate, Mr. Warnes, is also on the line. Are you
Yes.
there, Mick?
I'm here, thank you.
I'm going to let you start, and then I'll fill in after you do your presentation.
I think that the information that Jillian was so kind to pass through to the trust board was helpful and maybe a little confusing because the forms that I dealt with starting back in February were altered a little bit, and it went from a narrative to a form to another form. So I apologize that you have many iterations of the same program with regard to the most important, and that is during this period, Don Cox has been able to literally increase the program's reach from taking it from 14 affordable units to 16. And the breakdown for that was 10 individual single units, not communal living, and 6 where it could accommodate families, which is a rather unique proposition considering 3-bedroom units. So there's 6 3-bedrooms and 10 1-bedroom. And I apologize to anyone who read the many different forms that I had submitted. But what I was most concerned about is that our original pre-development funding to get all the data that the board needs for final review was subject to the pressures of COVID, the supply chain, and our suppliers. And I'd like to stop right here and explain that we are interested in getting the board's approval for the pre-development. And again, I may apologize because some of the information that I was asked to submit was actually in the full development phase ahead of the fact that we hadn't been approved for the pre-development. So to get those numbers from all the professionals from engineering and architecture and design people and the paperwork for the town, county, and state, we are well apprised of doing this, except that we could not proceed without getting the initial approval, which we're hoping to get today. So if I can put it back to the chairman, that I would yield to say that Don Cox has put this program together for many years and working in housing and on the Cape that has made this possible with many of his connections. And I like to give either back to the chairman so that I make sure that we stay on the review that you need, or I would go to Mr. Cox to explain how this came to be, and basically that over these many months of delays, we've just been able to refine as best we can without final numbers from contractors, engineers, and the like, and we're looking for that approval. So back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your explanation. So Jillian or other supporting staff, do we have the pre-development funds application completed for us to be able to consider this request?
If I could, because the application asked for a lot of things that really were not relevant, even though there are some things that are blanks here because they haven't been produced yet. In my impression, it is as complete as it can be without the pre-development funds. So that, in other words, the exact cost of these, the construction details, and would need to be developed by the engineers and the consultants and the architects.
Okay, so you're advising that we do have in order an application for consideration for $50,000 for pre-development funds.
That is my impression, yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So, next step would be to consider that request, correct? And then for the board to take that under discussion, and then to ultimately move on that issue. So, has everybody seen this, and is there any discussion on this item? Let me see here. I'm looking for everybody. Laura, yes, please. Sorry, I got to jump screens there.
Oh, that's okay. As expected, I have questions. I think the first question probably is one to ask Charlie, and that is because they don't own this and there is no collateral. I'm asking, how can CPA funds or trust funds be used and still satisfy anti-aid? There's in other projects that we've funded, we've taken mortgages on other projects and whatever to collateralize. So that's my first question. I think when we were looking at pre-development, we were thinking, or as it was presented to me, it wasn't my thinking, was that it would be folks that already own property that would be either going up in commercial or public projects that wouldn't there, and just good through the chair to Charlie.
Mr. Chair, if I may, we have the
Right,
property.
well, wait a second. Hold
Okay.
on, Mr. Cox. Charlie McLaughlin, you were asked to respond.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Cox, I'll go to you.
Yeah, your question, Laura, is exactly my first question. I think it's problematic until we have control of a site to be advancing monies. And the control need not be ownership if you've got a live purchase and sale that's adequately designed to make sure that if we spend the money and everything falls into place, they could actually execute a plan of moving forward. So the most recent example that comes to mind was the project over by the Chevy dealership, where we needed to secure funding, secure our advance against other properties, which is one way to get some assurance that if we had something to secure this against, the fact that it is not necessarily under agreement, the prospective site might be an alternative approach to it. But I'd need to get up to speed on maybe spending some time with Don and Jillian to learn a little bit more about it and see if there's any
Can
way
I
to
just
secure these advance funds.
Can I just follow up? If there's it seems like there could be purchase and sales, but how do you collateralize using PD?
That's the other part of
Okay.
the other shoe to examine is and I say and Laura may remember from our involvement with Howard Check Medical Housing that we want to make sure if it's a prospective acquisition under purchase and sale or something, we've got to make sure that we've got good title, that if you close, that you've actually got good title on that property. We had an experience at Harwich that unfortunately the title was done late in the process, turned out to be a bad title, and the whole thing blew up, and a lot of advance monies went down the chute. So we've got to, I think, spend time with Julian and Don to understand a little bit better what our options are and see if what property we're targeting and what the and how we might secure these advance funds. I don't think it's an ideal situation that we're looking at, but let's have an open mind and we'll take a hard look at it.
All right, now, Mr. Cox, please.
Charlie, I have a live purchase and sale agreement in place that I've had since March when we started with this, back when Ruth was in charge of the committee. And the owner has worked with us diligently through the entire time, starts and stops and meetings and everything else. And we have a commitment from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for a significant amount of money as a down payment in the initial phase to secure the property. We also have a commitment from our bank, which is Cape Cod 5, who has committed to working on with us on this project to fund it. And we are just waiting to get the pre-development part of this together to pull the trigger and get all this done.
Okay, so.
All good news.
Mr. Cox, that is encouraging. What I would advise, though, is that I am going to look to Attorney McLaughlin to advise this committee.
Okay.
And so perhaps you and he could meet, and then he can report back to the committee so that we can move forward with this vote.
Be more than happy to do that. We've been trying to do that since last March, Mark.
Okay, well, first I've heard of it, sir. So, Mr. McLaughlin, please do that. And board members, at this time, is there any concern about moving this to our next meeting? That would be the expectation, that you would come back, Charlie, with a recommendation.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Okay, board members, any further discussion relevant to that? Okay, board members, any further discussion that might also be considered over the over the next 30 days? Laura, did you have more questions?
I do, but Wendy has her hand up.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry,
That's
Wendy.
Yeah, probably at the bottom of the screen. Sorry about that. I guess my one request would be is if the developer and the town attorney are ready earlier, that we not wait till the first Friday of the month, that we could try to accelerate the process for them if need be.
I don't know. I don't want to speak for Attorney McLaughlin. My expectation is first meeting next month, but if he says to me he can move this more quickly, okay, but that's all. I would leave that for him to get back to me. And I don't expect him to answer me right now because I need him to understand what he is undertaking.
Okay.
If I can, this is Mr. Warnes, just commenting for a minute. There's a lot of information that has been requested that I don't think the committee has had an opportunity to review, excuse me, the board. And I think what Don Cox was just saying is that all of these funds, all of these financial support mechanisms are in place. And I think that Don is basically saying we could provide the data, the information, the financing, the support from the state, the support from Don's network in a more timely manner, because if Attorney McLaughlin can review it, then I think what we'd like to do is just move to show that this is a bona fide position for closing with the property owners as well. We're delaying them yet again.
Understand what you're sharing with us, sir. At this time, I hold with my position on this. I do allow Attorney McLaughlin to go back to Jillian and Jillian to request of the board a meeting sooner than what our
Perfect.
next meeting would
That's
normally
perfect.
be. But at this point, I understand what you're saying, but I want to give Attorney McLaughlin adequate time to answer the question.
Charlie, I'm available whenever you're ready to meet. I can come to you or you can come up to Sandwich. We have our offices outside the base now in Sandwich.
Don, if you could kindly reach out to our office, I'll give you a phone number,
Yep, go ahead.
862-4620.
I'll give you a call
We'll
today.
set something up for you for next week.
Perfect. Thanks, Charlie. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Mark, thank you. And I thank the committee for your time. I'm sorry that we didn't have this tied up better, but we'll get it to you as soon as possible.
Thank you for your patience. We appreciate it. Any further discussion? Oh, Laura, did you have other questions? I'm sorry. I think I cut you off.
That's okay. I think that there's, just some questions around what the 50,000 is going to be used for. Because it was a little confusing in the table. The way that, for pre-development, the first thing you do is get a development consultant on board, especially if you're doing affordable housing. This isn't, a usual, it's a specific skill that has to happen, especially if you're applying to state funds besides earmarks. And I think that should be the first thing. I also, in the plans, there are 2 and 3 bedroom units, not all 3 bedroom units. So there's some inconsistencies in a lot of the information that we have that just, I'd like to see cleaned up, I can understand that you wouldn't have a, development budget that's complete right now because you don't have all the information. But in my estimation, the first thing you should do is get a development consultant on board to guide you through this process, because it's not for the faint of heart or for the, first time doing this if you're looking for funds. Also, I would say that the 10 units that are already there are already on our SHI. They're already affordable homes, so we can't use CPA funds to rehab those. And if they're going to continue as project-based units. So the only units that we'd be able to fund going down the line is the new units. So I'll stop there, but those are kind of my global questions.
Laura, can I ask you a question, or
Sure.
Jillian? Both, I guess. Laura, you first. So eligible pre-development funds. Is there a typical scope for eligible pre-development funds? And is this $50,000 request in line with that? And if we can't answer that, that's okay, but that's what I would want Charlie to be able to tell me.
In my opinion, the $50,000 isn't, the dollar amount isn't wrong. I think maybe where it's going, where it's listed as going is, because the first thing you do is find out if it's financially feasible once you have a site plan, a conceptual site plan and conceptual plans, which it looks like they have the conceptual plans. I haven't seen that it fits on a lot, so that would be something I'd be looking for as initial engineering, and obviously a title search, which sometimes happens at closing. But if we're going to give the money, like Charlie said, we need a title rundown, and then as part of there's the design comes after you get all your funding together, the final design, and I think that's in here. So I think it's just a rearranging of the $50,000 to make it, to get them enough information to then apply for the other funds that they're going to need to move forward.
All right, thank you, Laura. Charlie, you heard all that, I know.
I did, sir.
Hold on, Jillian, did you have any comments?
I agree with that. I do think that the financial consultants, because it's an affordable project, is the piece that is the feasibility, is the part that if you had a professional that said, yes, we concur, this is feasible, and now you can proceed. That's the type of information that I think everybody's looking for, is something that underscores the review of those things related to which funds can be used towards which, and all the different compliance components that this is going to require.
Okay.
And the title search, if it's already available, that would be great. And I guess I offer to both Charlie and to Don, if you need documents picked up or run or anything like that, please just ask me and I'll go pick up and bring back, and to expedite the process if I can.
Charlie,
I just remind everybody in terms of funding that is not CPA based, i.e. the $1 million that we started with. I don't know what's left in that drawer, but they don't have the CPA impressed restrictions on them. I don't know whether that provides any room for discussion, but again, I just maybe Mark, Mark Milne, do you know offhand, or Jillian, what's left of that $1 million that might?
you know, I'm not looking to finagle this. I think that the eligibility criteria is there to guide us in appropriately utilizing funds, and I'm going to hold with that for now, Charlie.
Yep.
If Mark Milne wants to advise us at that next meeting, and it'll be always one of my questions to Mark, do we have adequate funds? And then to you and Mark, do you believe it eligible? We can certainly address
Sure.
that. But at
Yep.
this time, I'm not looking to do that. I want to understand that this meets the scope for eligible pre-development funding. And if it doesn't, yet we want to continue to support, that'll be a subsequent discussion.
Perfect.
Thank you, sir. Any board discussion on this? No? All right. Well, it sounds like you got to go back a little bit, Charlie, and make sure you hook up with them, okay? Make sure you and Don hook up so you can get that scheduled.
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you both. I appreciate your time.
Bye.
We'll get there.
Thanks, Don.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, next topic for discussion. Housing Coordinator Report, Elizabeth Jenkins / Ryan Bennett.
Good morning. If the trust is not aware, Ryan Bennett has resigned her position as housing coordinator. She has found a position closer to home in Chatham. So we are currently advertising for that position. Certainly, if you are in the affordable housing world and know of candidates, we would appreciate you spreading that job posting. So in her absence, I will provide the housing coordinator's report, first primarily on the progress towards completing the housing production plan. Was it Wednesday? This Wednesday, we did hold a housing forum to review the draft goals and strategies that were in the plan. We had a list of 33, I believe, goals and strategies that were reviewed with the public in person and on Zoom, who gave reactions to those strategies, as well as comments and other needs. So going forward, the next step in that process will be to review those forum results with the Housing Committee. That meeting happens on December 14th. In preparation for a draft plan that will be available for public comment on January 4th. So in that time period, I'm happy to bring a presentation to this committee, either myself or the consultant on those goals and strategies, so the trust is aware and is able to provide feedback and participate in that process. And I apologize, the time frame for the deliverable of the draft plan is January 4th, with the public comment period open January 18th. All of this targeted to have a final plan for town council approval on March 23rd. So we continue to proceed with that, and again, hope to have a presentation to you all on the strategies in that plan. The only other thing I wanted to report out on, and this was sort of towards Jillian's comment about sort of shifting our focus a little bit from supporting development to, looking at potential programs. I know we came to the committee with the idea of running a buy down program or a first time home buyer program. Really, I think that's what Jillian was speaking to, as opposed to development subsidies and gap filling that's in our NOFA. Really thinking, not as opposed to, I should say, in addition to, what are some of the other programs that we could get up and running. Again, I think we had been focused on a buy down program as I step into the housing production plan process and really look at that needs assessment, it really seems like rental assistance program, local rental assistance program is the recommendation that we're getting from our consultants and that we really heard strongly about in that housing production plan process. So we will come back to you with recommendations on those types of program funding as well. Thank you.
All right.
Mark,
Yes, please.
I just wanted to make a quick comment about the forums. I don't think it'd be a complete report without saying that there were only 20 people there and a quarter of them did not live in Barnstable. So, you know, I think at least maybe when we get the draft report, it would be nice to get some more input, to have the housing committee respond to the you know, the comments from just, or the opinions of just 20 people in a town the size of ours. Doesn't seem like it's a good representation. And I know that there was, you know, it was advertised, you know, but maybe not as well as it could have been, or there wasn't a lot of chatter about it. So it's just, again, it seems like it will be a plan from the top down instead of from the ground up, and that would be a shame.
I guess I'll push back on that a little by saying, you know, it was informed by, our plan is, our goals and strategies were recommended based on our needs assessment, as well as a survey that reached over 300 people. So while, yeah, it's certainly hard to get people to log on to a Zoom or come to town hall on a rainy day to give feedback, I think we tried really hard to reach out to folks about that meeting. And you know, it is not the final step in the process. You know, I think we have a great opportunity through the public review process to be able to really get people to take a look at that plan. And I do think it's being effective. Again, I feel our discussion about what our strategies are shifting based on the feedback that we've gotten in that plan. So
I'll also say that I was at the original one, and as has been documented, it's kind of the usual suspects that show up. It's the people that are opposing a project, and it's homeowners, white homeowners, over the age of 55. And, you know, that it isn't a good representation of the town. So,
Well,
I don't know.
I guess I'll be interested to see whether the strategies in our housing production plan reflect that minority, or whether it is a more broad objective set of strategies. Because my impression would be the latter. That's what I've been seeing from staff, Laura, but I can understand why, if you base it solely on who showed up, it might go in a particular direction, but I haven't seen that yet. And so but I'll wait patiently to take a look at what's coming forward. So yeah, I'm always, as town manager, I'm always in this discussion, doesn't matter what the topic is, of how to engage representatively, and how to do it in a timely manner that results in what's best for Barnstable. And so, you know, we're going to try to balance that as best we can. But I hear what you're saying, and you're right. And you're right in the sense that the people who show up are typically a particular group. And that, but on the other hand, if people choose not to show up, you can't make them. And so that's what I wrestle with every day. And at some point, I got to make a decision and say to Elizabeth, proceed with our housing production plan update. You understand. You've lived this.
I do, and I guess I'll make one other comment, especially to the comment that, you know, there were a number of people there who don't live in Barnstable. I mean, there were a number of people there who who work for organizations who serve the underrepresented. So while, that's not as good as having people actually involved in the process, I do think there are other ways to try to get those needs and those voices into the conversation, in absence of folks showing up to a meeting at town hall.
I actually have a question of Laura and Wendy, relevant to where Elizabeth's presentation began. In your opinion, Cape Cod, and Laura, you even more specifically know housing. What would be a good strategy for us to try to find Ryan Bennett's replacement? I mean, it is not easy to bring in the caliber of person that Elizabeth has around her. I mean, she works really hard with Bill Cole, but any thoughts? Any good sources for where we go to find that person?
I think the Cape Cod Commission is looking for a housing person as well.
Yeah, they don't pay very well though. They don't,
So what's well, Laura?
I think the Cape Cod Commission is paying 75. My staff, I mean, I know I'm in Boston, so it doesn't make, it's probably a different market, but my staff are making significantly more than that, the planners that I have on my staff. And some towns pay more than that, even on the Cape. And to have housing experience, it just, I get my my starting planners. Clark University has a great 5-year master's program, and they have great mentors for affordable housing planning, and we have great connections with them and with Northeastern, and they come in a little green on zoning things, because that's one thing that I don't think universities do a good job of, especially Massachusetts zoning, but well-versed in affordable housing. So I can pass along the professor's name and contact if,
Great.
and they're career folks. I have 3 staff now that all went through that program. So
Great. Especially Clark, because Bill's an alum from the Northeastern. So a name there would be great, but I'm pretty sure he can reach right in and access there. But Clark, that would be great. Thank you for that input. All right. Okay.
The ultimate irony on this, of course, is if you bring somebody in from off Cape, they're not going to be able to find a place to live. So
You don't know that. So Charlie, well, never mind. It's not part of this discussion.
Got a spare bedroom, Charlie?
You were not recognized, Charlie.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You're a glass half full guy, Charlie. Thank you.
No. No one ever accused me of that.
All right, let's move on. Elizabeth, did that conclude your housing coordinator report?
That's all I have, sir.
Thank you so much. All right, topic number 5, an update on town properties for affordable housing. Andy or David?
I'll take it, Andy. November 3rd, we went to town council and got approval for the change of use on the Marston's Mills parcel that was dedicated to affordable housing. And we are working now to prepare an RFP to get a draft to circulate through appropriate staff using the Mouse housing criteria, and also taking advantage of some of the RFPs that we have in our library. Laura, you had sent a bunch, so we have those. Jillian has some from down Cape. So we're going to pull together a draft and then circulate it internally with staff to try to meet the goal of early 2023 for an RFP to be on the street. DPW is actively working on 2 issues that we need for that RFP. One is the parcel boundary being drawn to accommodate the sidewalk. Looks like that's going to be an easement that gets attached to the land transfer. And we also have to reconstitute the driveway entrance. There was a piece of curbing that was put partially across the front driveway that needs to be addressed. And I've had conversation with Griffin Bowden on all of those. So they are actively working on those. The goal that we made publicly was to try to get an RFP out in early 2023. As far as the VFW property goes, we continue to do some of our outreach components. We check off the boxes to make sure that we've got the proper outreach into the community. We will eventually be coming to town council, looks like in early January, hopefully with a change of use vote similar to the one that we did in Marston's Mills. We do have a little bit of legal work to do in the sense that the current license with CC Construction to use that as a staging area actually expires at the end of December. So we do need to put a new license in because originally they had said that they were going to be done using it in March, but some of the estimates from DPW are that it could linger until May, just so that we get the paperwork in place. That's more on my desk than anything. And as a side note, the security fencing project that the police department was looking for to address some of the pass-through issues is well on its way. It may even be completed at this point. When you drive up Finney's Lane, you can see it. So it sounds like a lot of the things are falling into place for that. Once we have the change of use vote and once we have a format for an RFP, we can decide how we want to proceed internally and then bring recommendations forward. Those are the two active projects that we have at this time.
Thank you, David. Any questions?
Mark? David, just while you're thinking about the VFW parcel, when it gets closer, we can talk about the timing of release, because there's a sweet spot kind of when developers are not applying for other funding, and that's really the place to release an RFP. So we can talk about it as it's too early now, but it's basically from February to, maybe June, July.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, David.
Yes, sir.
Okay, moving on to.
Sir, Mark-
Oh, I'm
Mark
sorry,
has a-
Elizabeth. Sorry, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Els. David, what kind of outreach efforts, you mentioned outreach efforts are being
Yes.
done. What are those outreach efforts? I'd hate to get close to a finish line here and then all of a sudden have a large pushback from the surrounding neighborhoods.
So specifically in Marston's Mills, there was a meeting, and Elizabeth, certainly, if you want to jump in on this, what you guys were able to accomplish, because you were the ones who did the meeting, so I'll defer to you.
Sure. So working with the precinct counselors, we did present the possibility of the conversion of the quote unquote house on the hill at a Marston's Mills Village Civic Association. So the village was aware of that process and the proposed project. In terms of the Finney's Lane parcel, again, we're talking to precinct counselors and really thinking about what's our outreach strategy there to be able to inform the surrounding community. So I won't say we have that pinned down yet, but we do want to make sure that there's a public process as part of this to avoid the scenario that you just outlined.
Thank you.
All right, any further discussion? Laura, did you have your hand up again or no?
Not on this, no.
Okay, good. Okay, so we'll close topic 5, move on to topic 6, topics for future meeting agendas. I have some if nobody else does. Elizabeth Jenkins, in your opinion, given the vote last night by town council, does it merit any discussion about how that change of zoning at that location might impact opportunity for more housing and affordable housing? and it'll kind of tie into my next question, which is going to be, if we jump back to an earlier update that Jillian was giving us relevant to the NOFA, I feel as though as a board, we should talk a little bit more about what real market subsidy means for affordable housing. Because I feel like, we vacillate on how much we should be committing to an affordable unit. But whether we like it or not, if market is 250,000 and not 80,000, that's what it is. And so it kind of comes back to wanting to do something because we don't see activity. And on the other hand, should we be anticipating upcoming inventory at some dollar amount that's real in the market, and therefore not rush, but make sure we have those funds when that opportunity presents itself? So those are kind of two items that in my head, I'm trying to figure out how to make it work. So when the time is right, we're there with the money to make it happen. So Elizabeth, you first.
Yeah, so I'll give the best response I can sort of off the cuff. I do think they're great comments and one that we should probably take back and develop strategies for. I mean, I think as you saw last night at council, and just for everyone's benefit, the vote being to change the zoning that's applicable to the area around the Cape Cod Mall to support an additional mix of uses that included housing, multifamily housing at a pretty significant density, at least for our area. We actively promote our notice of funding availability with all developers that we speak to. The hope is that with more and more market rate units coming online, that companies will use those funds to buy down. I find it much harder when we're working with these big national developers. They have a funding path that's much more secure. And we've been talking a lot more internally how to incentivize sort of local builders and, sort of that small and mid-scale developer who, could benefit, I think, much more greatly from the subsidies and that gap filling power that the Trust NOFA has. But we'll definitely be engaged with Simon. We have a good relationship with them about that need. And I also think the other thing that sort of came out of that process was the ability to think about that corridor a little bit more cohesively, not just from a land use planning standpoint, but also from from the standpoint of how so not just from, I guess, a sort of form-based standpoint, but from a use standpoint, how can we take advantage of some of the underutilized parcels that are in and around that area? So we're not just thinking about our retail centers as an island, but really looking at the supporting area around them to be able to look at potential for increasing housing supply close to our job centers.
Okay, so is this something that should be further discussed at a future meeting, or did you just cover it and now we're going to see what happens as it unfolds?
I see a lot of hands, so I'll
Okay,
defer
Laura,
and then come
I
back.
see Laura's first. I'll scroll through my screen here. Go ahead, Laura.
I'll just say that I'm actually working on a project to look at various areas of the state for what is the number to buy down a unit from market to affordable. MHP has a $50 million for transit-oriented development capital, but it also the legislation also allows us to buy down market units affordable. So I am reaching out to national and state and local developers to try and get an idea. So probably by our next meeting, or the first meeting in January, I would be able to, share what the Cape developers are saying, how much it would take to buy down. Because we all we can do a an estimate based on the loss of income over the number of years and all that kind of stuff, but that isn't helpful. It's what does it mean to a developer to do it, especially if they already have inclusionary, and so they already have to do the lottery, they have to do stuff. Just adding another unit, or another, how much per unit is it going to take?
All right, so when you're ready, will you bring that forward for an item of discussion?
I will.
Thank you. Okay, so who else had their hand up? Andy,
Andy.
please.
Yes, sir. Elizabeth, you touched on wanting to take a look at mid and smaller developers. I feel like that is a discussion we need to have. I know a few town council meetings ago, there were some offhanded comments made about tie agreements and smaller developers looking towards tie agreements to avoid coming to this body because of all the strings attached to affordable housing. And I know Ryan had put together a short write-up when I asked about, trying to ground truth that. Is it true? And it sounds like there is some credibility towards it. When you get below a certain number of units, it is very difficult. And I don't know how we can overcome that, but I'd like to have a discussion. Even, it kind of even ties back to the proponent of the project today. Clearly, they're not a national developer that is savvy enough. And it seems like a lot of, what's tied to affordable housing makes it very difficult for those that are not quote unquote large affordable housing developers to access these funds. And I don't know if there's any latitude, but I definitely think it's worth having a discussion of how we can go about incentivizing those other than the large developers that are not coming, and when they do come, to your previous point, are not really interested in dealing with a house to try and buy down affordability.
Yeah, we can dig into that further and report back. We did put together sort of an initial response, but I mean, yeah, it's capacity, it's soft costs, it's timing. You just heard Laura say it was 90 days just for the lottery. And that's a lot to take on for $100,000 for a small developer. So really, I think just as Laura is doing, that sort of needs assessment. And we've been a big advocate for a regional housing service office here on the Cape. My understanding is that there is some progress towards that with the ARPA money through Barnstable County. They're going to pilot that for a couple of years. So we as a planning development department had been advocating for that strongly, and we've reached out to those folks and tried to see how we can support that, the development of that moving on so it has long-term sustainability, because that's something we would be very interested in supporting down the road.
All right. Well, any further discussion of topics for future meetings and agendas? Seeing none.
I'm sorry, Mark.
Oh, yes, Jillian, please.
I just did want to offer back that the 16th was a potential with our consultants with J.M. Goldson. If you wanted anything from them, they could attend a meeting on the 16th, the Zoom meeting, if that was desired.
I'm sorry, I missed. So this is our
J.M.
Housing
Goldson
production.
is the housing
production plan. Elizabeth, what do you advise?
I defer to the trust. It sounds like they're willing to come within their scope, which is great. If you guys would like to hear directly from them, they're a great resource and very experienced in the housing field. I'm certainly supportive if you want to talk directly to them, but I defer to you on the depth of presentation that you'd like.
What would they advise us that you haven't shared with us?
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be the opportunity to look through again the goals and strategies within that are in the HPP. But if you're looking for something more, then we can meet that request.
Well, I feel like Mark, Andy, and I have that opportunity anytime in a different role in our careers that we play, but so I would actually defer to Laura and Wendy whether that would be of benefit. Because we can access them through you, Laura. I mean, quite honestly, I mean, Elizabeth, but Laura and Wendy could come in too if they said, hey, Elizabeth, we want to sit down with you and talk. So how would you like to do this, Laura and Wendy? Would you like to have them come in and present where they are, or do you, how would you like to proceed? Laura first. Go ahead, Laura.
I'll go first. If you and Mark and Andy are all going to be part of hearing this elsewhere, I've heard it twice and made my comments. And, but I'm not sure if Wendy has, I can certainly, reiterate my comments on it, which I've, done in person and in writing, but, and would happy to do that, but I'll defer to Wendy.
I
Thank
think
you.
we should all meet again just so I can learn more. No, I think that I'm being exposed to the same information through my participation on the local comprehensive planning committee. So, and Fridays are not always great for me, so that's all.
All right, so at this point, unless Elizabeth Jenkins advises me otherwise, this group is available for us for a certain amount of time, but at this point, we're not going to schedule a specific meeting, okay?
Very good. Thank you.
If anybody's opinion changes, reach out to Jillian, okay? And she'll circle with Elizabeth and then we'll proceed. Okay, great. Okay, any matters not reasonably anticipated? I guess I should ask myself that, but go ahead, Laura, and then Wendy.
Kind of more just announcements or FYIs. In the economic development bill, there was a new, well, kind of a reconfigured starter homes legislation. There aren't regs around it yet, of course, because it just got approved, but DHCD is, the state's been working on this, waiting for the approval. Basically, it's a new authority like 40R. So you can do an overlay district for single family homes of a minimum of 4 per acre. And anything less than 12 units, I think there aren't affordability requirements, but there are you can have design standards. The maximum square footage of the home is 1,850 square feet, I think. And for zoning, similar to 40R, you get a payment. The town would get it if you pass zoning. You'd get a payment for the how much capacity you could, how many of these houses you could build, and then every time one's built, you get $3,000. I can't remember what the current 40R payment is, but you get so much at approving the district, and then you get so much when they're built. There may be areas in town that this would work for, especially with sewering going in, or making redevelopment of already existing housing that's in that density work. So just something that I thought I'd bring forward. One, the Mass Dreams program, which is a down payment assistance program for first-time home buyers. Mass Housing Partnership still has money. Mass Housing's advertising they're out of money, but Mass Housing Partnership, we have about another 1.5 years of money. So if they use our first-time home buyer program, the one mortgage, they can get up to $50,000 of down payment assistance. And that's up to, I think it's up to 150% of AMI. So just two quick announcements that I think we could look further into. The down payment assistance is going to be around, but just getting the word out that we still have lots of money.
And does the lending world know this?
the one mortgage lenders all know it. But there is a lot of confusion with realtors and because Mass Housing's been so loud about saying they're out of money, that it gets confusing with Mass Housing and Mass Housing Partnership. So,
Okay,
so that's why I'm trying to just spread the word that we still have lots of money.
great. All right. Wendy, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to, it's the end of the calendar year, so I was hoping if we're going to continue to meet the first Friday of the month on a regular basis, if someone could plunk that meeting appointment in our calendars that with the Zoom link, that would be helpful.
Yeah, Jillian, could you take care of that?
I will work with Ellen because she's been helping me with those. Thank you. Yes.
I think
Okay.
they're in there till April, but that'll come fast too.
Yeah. And I have one question, and Elizabeth Jenkins. So the county is putting in place a position. How does that relate to this and this board? And at some point when that position is filled, would it be worth having that as a future topic or guest?
Yeah, so I have not talked to Rainey Hammond, who was the one who reached out to me to understand the timeline on this, but yes, I mean, I think that again, the idea is that they're going to fund 2 years in kind of this position, which would be, and I'm not sure what side of the scope they're looking on, the monitoring side or the lottery side. I hope it's the latter, but yeah, well, we need everything. But when that comes in, yeah, I think it's really important that municipalities are part of that process to help get that up and running, because ultimately that would be supported by contributions by municipalities, as well as contributions by developers who are using those services. So we need to work together as a region to find a model that works and that's sustainable.
Okay, great. So Jillian, keep an eye on that, and obviously talk with Elizabeth, and when that's appropriate, bring that forward. Okay.
Excellent. Thank you.
Mark,
Yes,
just
Laura, please.
to note that I'm the Barnstable representative to the Home Consortium, and the Home Consortium has really been the one that's been helping to push this through the county. So I do have like scope of services and job description and all that kind of stuff. So Elizabeth, if you want, or Jill.
Yeah, it would be fantastic to know where you're going.
And yeah, it's
with
really
that.
been
Yeah.
spearheaded by Patty Daly at the commission. So, and
Okay.
the last I knew, they hadn't got the funding. They had applied for the funding.
Okay.
So it may have changed, but I haven't got an email saying that it's that it actually was done.
Maybe I misunderstood, but I did hear back from Rainey that with a positive, very positive tone. So, but I know there are different tiers in that process. So maybe they were just in the middle tier.
It could be, and we just didn't get notified.
All right. But yeah, if you have a scope, we would love to see that. We spent some time as a staff really looking at other models, and we all attended the trainings. I think MHP did those on putting together a regional housing service office. So this was something that we've been talking about for a long time. So we'd love to see that work.
Yeah, and one of my staff has been working with Patty and Rainey.
Great.
Together, so.
Great.
All right. Thank you, Laura.
You're welcome.
Yes. of course.
Can I just tag on to that conversation?
Yes,
Mark,
please.
because I was appointed to the county's task force to help them decide how to spend their $41 million in ARPA funding. And through some of the influence of being on this trust fund and my past role at the Cape Cod Chamber, it was, I spoke pretty loudly on the fact that we need a regional housing coordinator, for the want of a better term, because it's just, I mean, everyone has been struggling with this. So I think that there's that particular activity rose to the top of the list of priorities. And I think there might have just been funding that didn't have to be necessarily competed for to fund that. So where they've structured that whole opportunity for funding potential through the county in different ways for different, different scales. But I think that housing thing just rose to the top. So I believe that as Elizabeth said, is definitely underway. And I'm really glad to hear that because it's long overdue.
Okay, thank you, Wendy. All right, so I think that concludes discussion. Our next meeting, as scheduled, is first Friday in January 2023. That's scary. So it's 9 a.m. January 6th, 2023. But Charlie, through Jillian, let us know if the situation for some reason merits us considering a meeting before that, okay?
I sure will. I'm not optimistic that,
Well, no,
a number of questions,
Yeah.
but we'll see.
here's my ask of you, Charlie.
Yes, sir.
Come back to us when you're ready for us to vote on this, if this is an eligible vote, okay?
Absolutely.
All right, we don't want to continue to have discussions, that's all. And I'm not saying that it's, you're the solution, not the cause. But I'm just saying, come back to us when we're ready to close this one, okay?
We'll have it for you in the early January.
Or whenever, do it, take the time and then get us there, whether it's that meeting or at a subsequent, okay?
That eligibility question is a big issue, so we'll get to you.
Yeah, oh, it is, absolutely. Okay, thank you, I appreciate that. Okay, at this point, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Do I have a
Second,
Thank you. Roll call vote, Laura Schufelt,
Yes.
Wendy Northcross,
yes.
Mark Milne,
Yes.
Andy Clyburn,
Yes.
Mark Ells. Thank you all. Have a wonderful holiday if we don't see you before then. And thank you for your
Thanks,
service
everyone.
this year. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
I